The Elder Scrolls protagonists are some of the most powerful and consequential characters in the whole of Tamriel, but thinking about their fates leaves us with a simple question. Where are they? It seems to be a recurring trend that after the events of each game, the main character seems to fade into obscurity. Are they dead? Missing? Or are they still out there somewhere in the world, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge? Some have their fates confirmed, others are left ambiguous, while some remain total mysteries. We have a few clues to work with, but we're also going to have to use some speculation to fill in the gaps, and occasionally even don our tinfoil hat in search of the real truth. So today, we'll be covering all the mainline Elder Scrolls games, plus Redguard and Battlespire, to try and solve the question of what happened to the protagonists after the final credits rolled. So enough lollygagging, let's get started. I'm guessing most of you probably haven't played Arena, and I hadn't either until I started making this video. I mean, the game came out in 1994. If it was a person, it would probably be having back pain by now. So anyway, I think it would be helpful to start off with a quick recap of that game's story and the role of its protagonist. The central conflict concerns a plot against Emperor Uriel Septim VII, who is betrayed by his Imperial battle mage, Jagar Tharn. Tharn uses an artifact called the Staff of Chaos to trap the Emperor in a pocket realm of Oblivion, and then impersonates him using powerful illusion magic. Tharn's misrule then plunges the Empire into tyranny. To ensure the Emperor could not be freed, he shattered the Staff of Chaos into 8 pieces and scattered them to the far-flung corners of the continent. The only way to stop him will be to reunite the fragments of the staff, cast down the false ruler, and free the true Emperor from Oblivion so he can reclaim his rightful throne. Sounds simple, right? Anyway, the hero spends 10 years travelling to distant corners of Tamriel, from Red Mountain to the Crystal Tower, reuniting the scattered pieces of the staff. Finally, they confront Jagar Tharn at the Imperial Palace and strike down the false pretender. Emperor Uriel VII is freed from his imprisonment and greets the hero with the following words. "Thou art a true child of the Empire. I thank thee for thy assistance. I have a particular idea as to the question of your service in mind. From this day forth, thou art named Eternal Champion. From thy hand shall be dealt the needs of the Empire. I, Uriel Septim, true Emperor of Tamriel, do decree and thus make law. Arise, my champion, and take thy rightful place at my side." Now this implies that the Eternal Champion would continue to serve the Emperor as his right hand after the events of the game. So this allows us to make a decent guess at the Champion's true identity. Some fans have speculated that the Eternal Champion was none other than Okato of Firsthold, who served as Lord High Chancellor of the Elder Council under Uriel Septim VII. And there is some evidence to support this. The Daggerfall user guide confirms that this guy holding a torch in the game's intro is Okato, standing at the Emperor's right hand, just as the Eternal Champion would be. Also, Okato served as the new Imperial battle mage immediately following Jagar Tharn's death, which would be a fitting reward for the champion who defeated him. The timelines also seem to match up well enough. We know that Okato held political office prior to his elevation, and the Eternal Champion was also said to be a council member prior to the events of Arena. And as a High Elf, Okato was in no danger of aging out of the job anytime soon. As High Chancellor, Okato would go on to play a major role in history, taking on the leadership of the Empire after the Oblivion Crisis, until his assassination in the year 4E15, probably at the hands of Thalmor agents. Though the Eternal Champion's identity as Okato is far from confirmed, the pieces seem to line up nicely, and to be honest, we don't really have much else to go on, so I'm more than happy to accept this theory. Daggerfall was the second game in the series, and to be honest, most of you probably haven't played this either. I don't blame you. While its sheer scale is still impressive, it's definitely showing its age. Also, forgive my gameplay in this section. I died so many times I barely even made it out of the tutorial dungeon. Anyway, Daggerfall is set in the Iliac Bay region, split between the provinces of High Rock and Hammerfell. The player character is known only as the Agent, a blade sent by Emperor Uriel Septim to the kingdom of Daggerfall to put the spirit of the recently deceased King Lysandus to rest. The Agent would end up becoming enmeshed in the complex political struggles being fought in Iliac Bay between the Empire, the kingdoms of Sentinel, Wayrest, Daggerfall and Orsinium, and also the dark forces of the King of Worms and the Underking. These factions were all vying for an artifact known as the Totem of Tiber Septim, which would grant them control over the Numidium, a giant mechanical golem built by the Dwemer, which Tiber Septim used during his conquest of Tamriel. Daggerfall has 7 different endings, one where each faction gains control over the Numidium. Obviously, this made making a single canonical ending difficult, so Bethesda introduced the concept of a dragon break, allowing multiple contradictory events to happen at the same time. This effectively makes all the endings canon, but it also complicates the job of figuring out what happened to the Agent, as there were 7 different versions of them running around Iliac Bay, serving the ends of different factions. The book The Warp in the West claims that contact was lost with the Agent almost immediately after the Dragon Break. This seems to imply the Agent may have perished or defected after the events of the game, but that's not exactly the most exciting fate. So, like Arena, we can do some speculating about the Agent's identity, and we have a couple of possible candidates to choose from. In the late Third Era, Caius Casades was the Grand Spymaster of the Blades on the island of Vardenfell. He plays an important role in the third game, and is tasked with overseeing the Blades' response to the threat posed by Dagoth-Ur. This is an important and politically sensitive post, one that would be surely fitting for the Agent of Daggerfall, whose actions ultimately saw Iliac Bay reconsolidated under Imperial rule. What's more, Caius is eventually recalled to the Imperial City, presumably to help deal with the rising threat posed by the Mythic Dawn. Again, a task that the Emperor would only bestow upon a trusted, proven agent. The timelines match up well enough. Caius is middle-aged by the events of the third game, meaning that he would have been in his prime during the events of Daggerfall. Again, this is speculation, but I can't think of a better fate for the protagonist of the second game than becoming a mentor for the hero of the third. Still, there is one other possible candidate. Jofra was the Grand Master of the Blades in Cyrodiil during the Oblivion Crisis. It would make sense that the Agent might be entrusted with such a prestigious position by the Emperor, and also entrusted with the secret of Martin Septim's birth. Again, the timelines plausibly match. It's suggested that the Agent would have been in their 30s and 40s during the events of Daggerfall, making them in their late 50s or 60s during the events of Oblivion. This roughly matches up with Jofra's appearance in-game. Also, we should note that Jofra is a Breton. The protagonists of the games are usually depicted as their province's home race, so this would be fitting for the Agent of Daggerfall. Still, I'm probably wrong about most of this, and it's just as likely that the Agent ended up dead in a ditch somewhere, but it's still nice to think that they at least got a promotion after all that hard work. Before we move on to Morrowind, we'll do a quick detour. Between Daggerfall and Morrowind, 2 spin-off games were released. An Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire in 1997, and the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard in 1998. These were action-adventure games rather than traditional RPGs, and had a narrower scope than the main games, following a single story. They didn't do particularly well, critically or commercially, but Redguard is notable for being Todd Howard's first time as project lead on an Elder Scrolls game. Something that would ultimately lead the series to become what it is today. Anyway, let's look at Battlespire first. This game is set in the War Academy of the Imperial Battle Mages, a void castle suspended in Oblivion, known as the Battlespire. The story takes place during the events of Arena, when the imposter Jagar Tharn sat on the Ruby Throne. The player takes on the role of the Apprentice, a promising young mage who is sent to study at the Battlespire. But upon arriving, they find the fortress in chaos, overrun by Mehrunes Dagon's Daedric legions. The apprentice must fight through hordes of Daedra, banish Mehrunes Dagon, and find their way home to Tamriel. Like Arena and Daggerfall, Battlespire has a character creation system, though it's less in-depth than previous games. But unlike previous entries, there are canonical identities for the protagonists in this game. If the player character is female, then they will be playing as Vatasha Tranel, and if the player character is male, then they will play as Josian Cade. Whichever you choose, the other will be present in-game as your character's friend and fellow candidate, who will leave helpful clues for you throughout the game world. However, the ultimate fate of these characters in the aftermath of the game is unknown. Though the apprentice succeeds in banishing Dagon, saving their friend, and escaping to Tamriel, we don't know what became of them afterwards. Now let's look at Redguard. This game is unique in that there is no character creation, and for the first time we play as a set character, Cyrus the Redguard. Out of all the Elder Scrolls protagonists, we have the most biographical details about Cyrus, and he is a hugely important figure in the history of Hammerfell. After spending his early years as a pirate, Cyrus would end up travelling to the city of Stros Mackay in search of his missing sister. Eventually, he would become a pivotal figure in the rebellion against Tiber Septim's empire. This ended up with the Redguards negotiating a peace treaty for more favourable terms as a province of the empire. After the events of Redguard, there are many legends about the fate of Cyrus, though it's difficult to tell fact from fiction. One story claims that he went to Blackmarsh in search of a mysterious treasure known as the Eye of Argonia. There are even claims he sailed to the ancient sunken continent of Yakuda, where he met Lord Vivek, and even rumours that he travelled to Molag Bal's realm of Cold Harbour, and even the moon of Massa. Whatever ultimately became of Cyrus, I doubt that he had a quiet retirement, and he probably kept adventuring to the end of his days. Okay, now we're finally getting to the games you've probably actually played. Morrowind is the third mainline installment in the series, and takes place in the Dark Elf homeland. You play as a prisoner who has been sent to the island of Vardenfell on the orders of Emperor Uriel VII. There, you report to Caius Casades, Grand Master of the Blades, and begin to carry out missions for the Spymaster. Eventually, it is revealed that you are a potential candidate for Nerevarine, the reincarnation of Indoril Nerevar, the greatest hero of the Dunmer. You must fulfill the 7 trials of the Nerevarine and defeat the evil which lurks beneath Red Mountain. Dagoth the mad god who has stolen the power of the heart of Lorkhan. At the end of Morrowind's story, Dagoth is defeated, the heart of Lorkhan is destroyed, and the power of Morrowind's living gods is broken for good. But the fate of the Nerevarine is left more ambiguous. Still, there is a rumour you can overhear in Oblivion which claims the Nerevarine has left Morrowind on an expedition to Akavir, and has not been heard from since. It's never explained why the Nerevarine would travel across the sea to the continent of Akavir, but we can make a few guesses. The mysterious Akaviri have already attempted to invade Tamriel twice. It's possible that the Nerevarine had some kind of warning about another threat, and is attempting to prevent it. But there are also some out-of-game reasons for sending the Nerevarine to Akavir. Firstly, it's an easy way to get the Nerevarine out of the way for the events of the Oblivion Crisis. If they could solo Dagoth and the whole 6th house, I doubt a couple of Oblivion gates would have given them too much trouble. But there are some other, more intriguing reasons. If Bethesda ever chooses to set a game in Akavir, then the Nerevarine can provide a link between the continents that is familiar to players. It's also possible that the Nerevarine was intended to play a role in an early, scrapped storyline for Skyrim. Originally, the plot of Skyrim involved Emperor Uriel Septim V, the Emperor of Tamriel who went missing during an attempted invasion of Akavir. The original plot of Skyrim featured him as an antagonist, returning from Akavir at the head of an army of dragons, essentially serving as an evil dragonborn. Though this idea was later replaced by the return of Alduin, it's possible that the Nerevarine would have played some role in these events. But for now, the Nerevarines' exploits in Akavir remain a mystery, and we can only hope that future installments in the series will shed some light on them. Now we come to Oblivion, and the story of the hero of Kvatch. The hero was a prisoner in the Imperial City dungeons, before being released by Emperor Uriel VII. After the Emperor was assassinated by the Mythic Dawn, the Empire was left without an heir of the dragon blood. This made the dragonfires flicker out, allowing the gates of Oblivion to be thrown open for Mehrunes Dagon's Daedric armies. To resolve the Oblivion crisis, the hero had to track down the secret heir, Martin Septim, and ensure his elevation to the throne. The hero would lead the defense of Bruma and travel to the realm of Paradise to put an end to the Mythic Dawn's leader, Mankar Cameron. Finally, the sacrifice of Martin Septim banished Mehrunes Dagon from Tamriel, sealing the barriers to Oblivion forever. Following the resolution of the crisis, the hero was named the Champion of Cyrodiil by High Chancellor Okato, who was overseeing the Empire until a new emperor could be found. But the hero's journey was far from over. For that same year, a strange door opened in Nibene Bay, leading to the Shivering Isles, Sheogorath's realm of madness. There, the hero worked to stop the Grey March, the inevitable advance of the forces of order, led by the overthrown Daedric prince Jiggalag. Eventually, it was revealed that Jiggalag was none other than Sheogorath himself. Long ago, the Prince of Order had grown so powerful that he threatened to take over all of Oblivion. So the other Daedric princes banded together and cursed him with madness, turning him into Sheogorath. Every era, Sheogorath would revert into Jiggalag during an event known as the Grey March, and level the Shivering Isles to the ground. However, the arrival of the hero of Kvatch would break this cycle of destruction. When Sheogorath reverted into Jiggalag, the hero took up the mantle of the Mad God, and defeated the Prince of Order in single combat, banishing him from the Isles. After taking up Sheogorath's title, the hero would eventually become the Prince of Madness through a process known as mantling. This is essentially when a mortal becomes so similar to a deity that the two effectively merge into a single entity. So, the Sheogorath that we see in Skyrim was originally the hero of Kvatch before he took up the mantle of the Mad God and became the new Sheogorath. It's a bit of an esoteric concept, but the new Sheogorath's origins as the hero of Kvatch are essentially confirmed through dialogue in Skyrim. He claims to have witnessed Martin transform into an avatar of Akatosh, and the hero of Kvatch was the only person to witness this. He also makes some oblique references to other events in Oblivion, including the Mother's Head encountered in the Dark Brotherhood questline. This means that out of all of the mainline games, we have the best evidence for the hero of Kvatch's fate. And to be honest, there are worse fates than becoming a god, even if it means having a few screws loose. And at last, we've come to the big one. Now, because Skyrim is the most recent installment in the series, and we're still waiting for the Elder Scrolls 6, no fate has been confirmed for the last Dragonborn, so this section is going to involve a lot more guesswork. But I'd be willing to bet that, like previous protagonists, the last Dragonborn will be conveniently put out of the way in time for the next crisis to hit Tamriel. We've seen this happen time and time again, and there are a few reasons for this. First, introducing a returning protagonist would interfere with players' own headcanon about the fates of their own characters. And secondly, because the protagonists become absurdly powerful by the end of their stories. I mean, the last Dragonborn could probably take on the whole Aldmeri Dominion at this point, so they need to be put out of the way somewhere to allow the protagonist of the next game their chance to shine. So the question is, how are Bethesda going to write out the last Dragonborn? Well, I have a couple of theories. Firstly, the Dragonborn might follow in the footsteps of the Nerevarine and travel to one of the other continents of Nirn. It's possible that they could go to Akavir, which would make some sense given that continent's linked to dragons. But I think a more compelling destination might be Atmora, the lost northern continent which is the supposed homeland of the Nords. Atmora plays a key role in the history of both the Nords and the dragons, and though it's now thought to be frozen and lifeless, it surely holds many secrets that would be of interest to the Dragonborn. But another possibility is that the Dragonborn becomes trapped in another plane of reality. If this happens, it's likely to be Hermaeus Mora's realm of Apocrypha. At the end of Skyrim's Dragonborn DLC, the Daedric Prince of Forbidden Knowledge claims that the player character will take Marak's place as their champion. If this is the case, then the Dragonborn may very well become a prisoner in Apocrypha, forced to do the bidding of the Lord of Secrets. To be honest, I think this is the most likely destiny for the last Dragonborn. It's a grim fate for any hero, but it seems doubtful that even Hermaeus Mora could contain the Dragonborn forever, and perhaps the last chapter of their story is yet to be written. Now we have ruminated on the fate of all the heroes in the Elder Scrolls series, and we're still left with as many questions as answers. But really, the fate of any hero is what we believe it to be. As the players, we are the ones who ultimately decide the endings of our characters beyond the final quest in their story. But sadly, we can't all have our headcanon written into lore. So I think it's fitting that most of our heroes are left with endings that are ambiguous, leaving it up to us whether we choose to believe them. But anyway, I think I've rambled on enough for today. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more videos on the Elder Scrolls. And make sure to check out my 2.5 hour Morrowind video if you want a hefty dose of serious lore. And until next time, take care.